Buju, Kinamagin in Ireland, Indigenous, flying through the space as fast as possible to deliver this week's information with our Week at a Glance video, week 11. We will begin, as always, in our Week at a Glance video on our stream page. On this page, accessible to students using their @sagchipschool.net emails, you have the opportunity to find contact information, and students can access it with any device. You could sit there with them, or you can remember M. Ireland, first name, first initial, last name, at sagchip.org. And then we also have a Google Voice number. If you're going to send me a message there, please make sure you leave your name and your student's name. We have this week's newsletter that'll be talked about in just a moment. And then some previous material, including our breakfast and lunch menus for this month, and a few older videos that get cleaned up every couple of weeks. Let's start today with our newsletter that'll be sent home today. So that date is correct on this one. I want to thank everyone who came to parent-teacher conferences last week. It's always greatly appreciated. I know that for some parents, the timing didn't work, and I've been in contact with a few of you. But if you missed your conference, I'm more than happy to reschedule. We can do it in person right after school, or if it's probably going to be easier for you, I can do phone or Zoom conversations. Those have a little more flexibility, in all honesty. Just reach out to me, as some of you have, and we'll schedule something for you. Once the physical report cards are ready, I will let all parents know in these emails, and those will be sent home. I do not have the physical copies yet. Some schedule notes. One that's not here is today we're going to visit Mount Pleasant Middle School. That's during the school day. So you didn't have to really do anything further, but it gives us a good chance to meet the K-12 staff, tour the building. We'll be visiting Renaissance next week. And in Shepherd will be scheduled, hopefully not too distantly in the future. The idea is that if we can visit them all in the fall, that allows you to have conversations at home about where your student should attend. I know some of you have already made up your mind, and that's awesome. I do say that if Renaissance is going to be one of your choices, that you go ahead and do the enrollment packet. You can always change your mind and send them to Shepherd or Mount Pleasant later, but they do generally have a waiting list. And I would much rather see your student just pulled off that list than be stuck on it. Apologize for the cough. Some other scheduling notes. Monday, there is no school for Gitchadal Gijagad in English Veterans Day. So we'll take a day to thank all of our Gitchadal that have served our country in peacetime and in wartime. Friday is Wawashkeshi Gijagad, also known as the first day of hunting season for deer. So there is no school. As you may notice, both of these are pretty common days off around our region. If you're a hunter, good luck and be safe. Just a reminder, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, when there's school, we send home homework. That failed yesterday. I'll be completely honest with you. It is sitting neatly in the folder right now. So if your student didn't bring home homework last night, that is your teacher's fault, their teacher's fault. And he will have a stern conversation with himself about this. Got a little chaotic at the end of the day. Students out helping on the lodge and yep, messed it up. The weather seems to be on a roller coaster with more peaks and valleys and a Cedar Point ride. So make sure students are dressed for the appropriate weather on that day. At this time of year, it tends to be chilly in the morning. And if it's not chilly in the afternoon, it may be best to send them in a hoodie where they can wear it in the morning and also they can take it off in the afternoon and go with a t-shirt if need be. We are getting close to the point of the year during breaks. If your student is only wearing shorts, I may make them sit in and they'll miss out on break time because we just don't have time to keep changing back and forth in clothes. And we do want them to be healthy. However, during recess breaks, I will be sending them outside. that's a little bit longer break, and students do need to get out and move around. So make sure that they have the available clothing that's going to keep them comfortable and safe on that day. It's a much lower temperature before we stay inside only due to temps. And let's hope we don't get there anytime soon because it's cold then. Our weekly email notification, you can see on the side, Thanksgiving break this year will be the 27th to the 29th. And we'll be returning to Lansing in a little over a week and a half to visit MSU. More information on that will be coming soon. What are we learning? Today we're doing quite a few assessments. So we'll be moving in some new sections, such as dividing by a 2-digit divisor. That's the actual standard. It's a great idea if you sit with your student and work on some division problems. Some of them might benefit from doing a Google search with Khan Academy and practicing a little bit, watching a little bit. It is a tough topic, and it is every year. And even if the student hasn't mastered it yet, today the goal is to have them in a pretty good spot before we, break for winter. Language arts, today we're going to wrap up on character development. We'll be moving to a new unit here in a little over a week. We have some other things scheduled next week. Social studies, we're completing the small section on the West African kingdoms, and we're going to start looking at the motivations for colonization. That's going to take us a good chunk of school time until it leads us into the Revolutionary War in the spring. You can see the words. We only have 3 days, so we went with he or she traps, he or she hunts, and deer. If you go to this link, a lot of these words are read out. There is a button you can push for a lot of these words where you can hear it spoken for you, and also some of the other conjugations of that word. Finally, our learning plan today, well, for next week, we'll be looking at ballads, just kind of as an overview. It's a typical lesson right after the anniversary of the Edmund Fitzgerald sinking, so students have an understanding of what that terminology means. Looking at the code talkers, I know you've seen that in there. We had to shuttle it back, so we're getting towards the end of the quarter. You see, we're looking at writing an opinion paragraph, some grammar here. We're getting some word study with different Greek and Latin prefixes. Starting in that new chapter in math. We have a spiral review in social studies next week. So students that don't have a 3 in something from the first quarter, we will get a chance to take a look at that. Retake some quizzes and make sure that they have those 3s cemented in as we move forward. Looking at place value and multiplication, our math review and enrichment, and you can see our small groups, which we have now knocked down to 3. Rotated slightly differently. I hope everyone has a great long weekend. It's going to be a herky-jerky kind of schedule where we have 3 days off, 3 days of school, 3 days off, 5 days of school, 2 days off, 2 days of school, 5 days off. That brings us through Thanksgiving. So make sure you're checking the schedule for whether we have school on those days. Always on these days off, I recommend that students read for 20 minutes each day. Probably even writing for 15 or 20 minutes isn't a bad thing either. Help them develop their skills. If you have any questions, please reach out to me at mireland@sagchip.org or Ireland@sagchipschool.net. Hope everyone has a minogijigad, minwa, bamapi.